My name is Sami Khaled Mansour, and this is the story of how my life, once ruled by conflict and hate, was completely transformed. The events I'm about to share with you began on September 17, 1994, in a small town near Nablus in the West Bank. That was the day I realized the life I had been born into, one soaked in blood, loyalty, and legacy, was not as simple as it once seemed. I was born the eldest son of Imam Faisal Mansour, one of the founding figures in a powerful militant group many feared and many followed. In our streets, my father was more than a man. He was a symbol, a voice of resistance, a pillar of what we believed was justice. From my earliest memories, the rhythm of war was as familiar as the call to prayer. It wasn't something we feared. It was something we lived with, accepted, almost embraced. The sound of gunfire wasn't something that made me flinch. It was like a clock ticking in the background. I was raised in a home where every conversation circled back to the struggle, the oppression, and the honor of fighting for our land. My father spoke with certainty and conviction, and I never once thought to question him. Islam, for us, wasn't just faith. It was the foundation of identity. And the group my father helped lead wasn't just a political force. It was family, it was structure, it was our destiny. From a very young age, I believed that dying for the cause was the noblest thing a man could do. It didn't feel extreme. It felt right. It felt like truth. I didn't know anything else, and for a long time, I didn't want to. But things began to change as I got older. At first, I was given simple jobs to support the cause, moving messages, assisting in meetings, keeping watch during gatherings. But the deeper I went, the more I saw, and the more I saw, the more I started to question. Behind the slogans and the honor, I began to witness cracks, violence not just against our enemies, but against our own. Men I'd grown up respecting were now turning on each other. Innocent people were being punished in the name of secrecy, security, and control. It was hard to process at first. I wanted to believe that everything I saw had a reason, that maybe these brutal choices were made to protect us, to protect the cause. But deep down, something didn't sit right. I watched as a neighbor, a kind man with no known affiliations, was beaten in the street, accused of being a traitor without evidence. His screams still echo in my mind. I watched children lose their parents, mothers wailing in front of shattered homes, not because of Israeli bombs this time, but because of our own infighting. It shook me. At night, I'd lie awake replaying these things in my head, trying to reconcile them with everything I had been taught. My father's voice would ring in my ears, telling me we were righteous, that our cause was holy, that our actions were blessed by God. But what I saw on the ground told a different story. I started to ask myself questions I never had the courage to ask before, questions that made me feel like a traitor even for thinking them. Were we truly fighting for justice, or had we become addicted to revenge? These doubts were a quiet storm in my heart. I didn't speak them out loud, not to anyone. In our world, doubt was dangerous. It meant weakness. It meant disloyalty. So I kept moving forward, doing what was expected of me, nodding when I was told to, following orders, and playing my part. But that storm inside me never stopped. It only grew stronger with each injustice I witnessed, each time we punished someone out of fear instead of truth, each time I saw us become the very thing we claimed to be fighting against. Then came the moment that changed everything. I still remember that day like it just happened. We were preparing for a meeting, something high level, involving men much deeper in the organization than I was. I was there to assist, nothing more. But as I waited outside, one of our own members was dragged in, blindfolded, blood on his face. They said he had leaked information. No proof. No trial. Just an accusation. Within minutes, I heard the beating start. No one even flinched. I stood there, frozen, heart racing, and for the first time, I felt afraid, not of our enemies, but of us. That night, I couldn't sleep. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I stared at the ceiling in my room thinking, what if it was me next? Not because I'd done anything, but because I'd seen too much. Because maybe someone would sense that I didn't believe as strongly anymore. The world I had once felt proud to be a part of suddenly felt like a cage. And for the first time in my life, I wanted out. I didn't know what that meant or how I would even survive outside of this life. But I knew I couldn't live in it anymore. A few weeks later, something unexpected happened. I was approached by someone connected to Israeli intelligence. At first, I thought it was a setup, maybe a trap to test my loyalty. But it wasn't. They knew who I was. They knew who my father was. And they didn't threaten me. They didn't offer money or power. They offered something different. They said, "You can help save lives." And for the first time, I felt like someone was speaking to the part of me that had been screaming in silence for years. I didn't say yes right away. I was terrified. Everything I had been taught told me that working with the enemy was the ultimate betrayal. It wasn't just a betrayal of the cause, it was a betrayal of my family, my blood, my faith, my people. But then I thought about the man they beat in front of me. I thought about the innocent lives lost in bombings, the children who would never see their fathers again, the mothers who buried sons they didn't even know were involved in anything. I thought, what if I could prevent that? What if I could stop even one of those deaths? After weeks of inner war, I made my decision. I agreed to work with them. I didn't do it for revenge. I didn't do it because I hated anyone. I did it because I loved my people, and I couldn't bear to see us destroy ourselves anymore. That was the beginning of a life I never imagined for myself, a life lived between two worlds, both dangerous, both watching me, both ready to end me if I made the wrong move. Living that double life was like walking a tightrope over fire. By day, I was still the devoted son of Imam Faisal Mansour. I was still present in the meetings, still respected, still trusted. But by night, I was passing information, helping intercept planned attacks, preventing assassinations, stopping bloodshed on both sides. Every time I handed over intel, my heart pounded with the weight of it all. I knew if I was caught, I would die a slow, painful death. And worse, my family would carry the shame. But still, I did it. Because I had to. The longer I lived this life, the heavier it became. I stopped sleeping. I barely ate. I looked into the eyes of men I once admired, men who trusted me with their lives, and I knew I was hiding a truth that would shatter everything. I carried the guilt like a stone in my chest. Every day felt like a countdown. I'd wake up wondering if this was the day someone would find out. If this was the day a whisper in the wrong ear would end everything, not just for me, but for everyone I loved. But something unexpected happened in the middle of all that chaos. I was arrested. The Israeli authorities picked me up, maybe to protect me, maybe to interrogate me further, maybe both. I was taken to a prison outside of Ashkelon, and for the first time in years, I was completely alone. No sides. No war meetings. No lies to manage. Just silence. At first, it felt like a punishment. But now I realized it was a gift. It was in that silence that I found something I never thought I'd touch. A Christian aid worker came to visit the prison. He wasn't like the others. He didn't try to convert me or argue religion. He just listened. Then one day, he handed me a small, worn-out Bible. I didn't know what to do with it. I was a Muslim, the son of an imam. Reading it felt like another betrayal. But late one night, curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. The first verse I read felt like a whisper straight into my soul. Love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you. I read it again and again. I couldn't understand how these words could exist in a world like mine, a world where enemies were to be destroyed, not loved. Something in me cracked open. I had spent my entire life being taught that revenge was strength, that hatred was holy. But these words spoke of forgiveness, of mercy, of peace. They didn't make sense. And yet, they felt right. I kept reading every night in secret. I read about Jesus, how he didn't just preach love, he lived it. How he forgave the very people who nailed him to a cross. How he wept for the broken, the lost, the forgotten. I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't turn away either. The more I read, the more I felt something shifting inside me. For the first time, I began to wonder if I'd been looking for God in all the wrong places. Maybe, just maybe, this Jesus wasn't who I thought he was. One night, alone in that cold prison cell, I dropped to my knees. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't even sure how to pray. But I whispered, Jesus, if you are who you say you are, I need you. I can't carry this life anymore. I'm tired. I'm broken. Please, show me who you are. And in that moment, something changed. I can't explain it fully, but I felt a weight lift from me, like a darkness that had been wrapped around my heart for years had finally broken. I felt peace. Not just calm. Peace. A kind I had never known before. I didn't suddenly become a perfect person after that night, but I knew something inside me had shifted forever. I kept reading the Bible every day. I started praying, not like I used to, reciting memorized lines out of obligation, but real, honest prayers. I talked to God like he was right there in the room with me. And every time I did, I felt less afraid, less confused. It was like, piece by piece, my old identity was falling away, and something new was growing in its place. When I eventually got out of prison, I was no longer the same man who went in. But stepping back into the world brought its own storm. Words started to spread. Rumors. Whispers. Then accusations. My family found out I had converted to Christianity. I can't even begin to explain what that felt like. My own father, my hero, my teacher, the man I had followed without question, publicly disowned me. To him, I was dead. Not just to him, but to my entire community. I was called a traitor, a disgrace, a sellout. Overnight, I lost everyone. I started receiving death threats. Men I had once stood beside now wanted me gone. I couldn't return home. I couldn't walk down the street without looking over my shoulder. But through all of it, that peace never left me. The same peace I found in that prison cell carried me through the rejection, the isolation, and the fear. People asked me how I didn't fall apart, how I didn't go back. And the truth is, I wanted to. Many times. But every time I thought about walking away, I remembered the look on Jesus' face when I read about him forgiving the people who tortured him. That love was real, and I couldn't turn away from it. There were nights I cried until I couldn't breathe. Not because I regretted following Jesus, but because the cost of it was more than I ever imagined. I missed my mother's voice. I missed the sound of my little brother laughing in the kitchen. I missed being part of something, even if that something had become a prison of its own. But no matter how deep the loneliness got, I always felt that I wasn't truly alone. In the quietest moments, I felt God's presence with me, gentle, patient, and real. He never left me, even when everyone else did. I began to understand what it truly meant to be free. Not politically free, not socially accepted, but spiritually free. Free from the hate I had carried like armor my entire life. free from the lies that said violence was the only answer, free from the fear that had shaped every decision I made. It didn't matter that the world had turned its back on me, because God hadn't. And I knew now that His love was not something you earn with loyalty or blood, it was a gift. A gift I never deserved, but one I would never stop holding on to. Over time, I started to share my story, quietly at first. One person here, another there. I was scared. What if they mocked me? What if they called me a liar? But the more I shared, the more I saw that there were others like me. People trapped in darkness, weighed down by anger, by pain, by the need to belong to something that was only breaking them. And when I told them what Jesus had done in my life, I saw hope in their eyes. Real hope. Not the kind that politics or power promises. The kind that only comes from the truth. I've come to believe that my story isn't just about me. It's about what God can do with the most broken pieces of a person's life. I was raised in hate, I lived in war, and I was trained to see the world through the eyes of an enemy. But Jesus didn't see me that way. He saw me as a soul worth saving. He didn't wait for me to clean up my life or change my past. He met me right where I was, in a prison cell, full of guilt, fear, and doubt, and He gave me a new beginning. That's what grace really is. Today, I don't carry the title of son of a leader or member of a cause. Those titles are gone. I am simply a child of God, and that is more than enough. My past doesn't define me. My failures don't shame me. The threats may still come, the isolation might still linger, but none of that compares to the freedom I've found in Christ. He took a life headed for destruction and gave it meaning. He gave me peace. And most importantly, He gave me love, real, unconditional love. To anyone listening, whether you've lived a life like mine or you're carrying a completely different kind of pain, I want you to know something. It's not too late. You are not too far gone. You are not beyond the reach of God's love. If He can save someone like me, He can save anyone. All you have to do is open your heart and take one honest step toward Him. He'll do the rest. I promise you He will. If my story moved something in your heart today, I ask you to not leave without doing one thing. Please, leave a comment below, even if it's just your name, so I can pray for you. Subscribe if you want to hear more testimonies like mine. And if you know someone who needs hope, share this video with them. You never know whose life might change just by hearing what God can do. Jesus changed my life. And He can change yours too.